Let's talk about a writer who declared war, not with guns, but with grammar. A man who started an insurgency, not against a government, but against the very idea of what African literature was supposed to be. We're going to meet the literary insurgent who set out to tear down an empire of ideas one sentence at a time, Dambudzo Marechera.
And that was his battle cry. With those words, the Zimbabwean writer Dambudzo Marechera basically drew a massive line in the sand. It was a declaration of complete and total artistic independence. And you know what? It made him an outcast, a rebel, and eventually a legend.
So who was this guy, Dambudzo Marechera, this self-proclaimed literary outlaw? Well, to really get a handle on this rebel, we first have to understand the rules he was so determined to smash to pieces, the unwritten code of African literature during the Age of Independence.
All right, so picture this. It's the 1960s and 70s. African nations are fighting for and winning their independence. And during this incredible time, there was this unspoken set of rules for writers. Literature wasn't just art. It was seen as a tool, a really important part of the whole nation-building project.
So, on one side, you had these literary giants like Chinua Achebe, and their philosophy was that writers had a collective job to do, to restore cultural dignity and to serve the political goals of liberation. And then you had Marechera. He just rejected all of it. For him, the only thing that mattered was the writer's blind impulse.
I mean, listen to that quote from Achebe. It shows you just how deep this idea ran. Art had to have a purpose, a clear social and political one. When you're trying to build a new nation, there's just no room for purely individual expression. Literature was a weapon for the people.
So what happens when a writer's blind impulse tells him to just burn the entire rulebook? Well, you get Dambudzo Marechera. He didn't just disagree with these ideas on paper, he lived a life of active rebellion against any and all authority.
His life just became this series of explosions. He got expelled from the University of Rhodesia for protesting. Then he gets this super prestigious scholarship to Oxford, only to get expelled from there too after, and this is true, trying to set the college on fire. For Marechera, you didn't reform institutions, you resisted them.
And his rebellion wasn't just in academia. After winning the Guardian Fiction Prize for his very first book, he shows up to this fancy dinner and, in a fit of rage, just starts chucking dinner plates at a chandelier. This tells you everything. His rebellion wasn't just a literary stance, it was a performance. It was how he lived, anarchic, confrontational, and absolutely uncompromising. But here's the thing. Marechera's most powerful act of defiance wasn't setting fires or throwing plates. No, it was his writing style itself. He created a brand new kind of literary weapon, one that was designed to dismantle things, not build them up.
Now, most of his contemporaries were using something called social realism. Think clear, straightforward stories, a beginning, a middle, an end, all designed to teach a lesson or help build a national identity. It was orderly, it was logical, and it was politically useful.
And Marechera, he had nothing but pure contempt for it. He argued that the violent, chaotic reality of colonial Rhodesia, the total unneatness of being human, could never, ever be captured in such a tidy little story. For him, realism wasn't real at all. It was a lie that cleaned up a brutal truth.
So what did he use instead? He had this whole aesthetic toolkit. He used fragmentation, shattering his stories into pieces as a political act, denying the state the neat, unified narratives it craved. He used stream of consciousness to show you the unfiltered chaos of a mind under siege. He loved what he called the formal grotesque, basically smashing together incompatible ideas to throw the reader off balance. And he didn't just use English, he fought it. He called his process hair-raising penga duels with the colonial language, trying to bend and break it to express his reality.
So, he's got these literary weapons. What was the target? What was he trying to describe with all this chaos and fragmentation? It was his home. The country known first as Rhodesia and later as Zimbabwe.
Marechera gave his country a name, the House of Hunger. And look, this wasn't just about a lack of food. For him, it was a place of deep psychological and existential starvation, a structure that literally starved the soul.
In Marechera's eyes, the nation wasn't some hopeful project. It was a prison. His writing paints this world of constant police surveillance, of violence everywhere, of corruption that goes to the bone. He wrote about a mind infested with lice, about a whole nation of captives. He used these really raw images of filth and decay to expose what he saw as the post-colonial nightmare, tearing down that simple idea of good native versus bad colonizer by showing how oppression just kept going, even after independence.
Marechera died tragically young, only 35 years old, from an AIDS-related illness. He was often homeless, completely broke. So, why does this difficult, self-destructive, and confrontational writer still matter so much to us today?
Because his rebellion blew a hole in the wall and created a new space for others. As the literary journal Brittle Paper puts it, he became an icon. He basically gave permission for future generations of writers to break the rules, to experiment, and to challenge the very idea that art has to serve a flag.
You see, by refusing to be just an African writer, Marechera was making this huge, radical claim for universalism. He argued that creativity doesn't have a passport, that art doesn't owe allegiance to anyone. The true center of the creative universe isn't in London or Paris. It can be anywhere, and it can be in anyone.
And that really leaves us with the question that his entire life and work forces us to ask ourselves. What is an artist's ultimate responsibility? Is it to be a good citizen, helping build a better society? Or is it to be an insurgent whose only duty is to the truth, no matter how chaotic, how ugly, or how disruptive that truth might be?